Hey guys, happy Friday. Been a long time since you saw Carl and I do a YouTube live. We're super excited to have you guys here. I know we've missed doing these. Who knows how regular we'll get back into it, but it's been a while and we are so thrilled to be here. So happy Friday to you guys. Carl, how are you today, my man?
I am good. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you very much. Finished 75 hard on Wednesday. Started with all of my knee stuff because, as you know, I completely smashed my knee on day 62.
Yeah.
But yeah. So for those who are regulars, haven't seen us for a couple of months, yeah, I probably look a bit slimmer now. I'm 31 pounds lighter than I was last time you saw me. If you've been following all the updates on social media and on email, you'll know I did 75 hard. So I'm not going to go into that. Just to say it's been absolutely awesome. There are a few kind of like little lessons that I picked up, which I think will play to some of the questions that we've got in the mailbag this week. So no, I'm, you know me, Adam, I love doing this stuff. I love talking to our readers and our clients and just pushing them forward as far as we can through all of our collective experience in doing deals. So looking forward to this.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the things you and we've talked about it, I feel like ad nauseum at times is, our goal with Dealmaker Wealth Society is to help as many people as we possibly can become business owners. And if they are business owners, set them on a path to owning an empire. It's something we believe fully in, and one of the things Carl and I do that's different than many people you see out there teaching or pretending to teach, or frankly being students of Carl's and then going and teaching again, right? What we do differently is we're still actively acquiring businesses. I mean, it's kind of funny, Carl. I'm expecting a call back on an offer we made last week today for a company here in the States, and it's just a part of the process. We look at business ownership for ourselves being the ultimate wealth generator, being the ultimate source of financial, lifestyle, and all around freedom in general. And Dealmaker for us is less about anything financially motivated. It's more about how can we create a world, a culture of change and entrepreneurship where we can allow as many people as possible through training to achieve their goals and their lifelong dreams. And that's why we do what we do.
Absolutely. And I think this is what kind of differentiates us from a lot of the other people in that, we don't just teach this stuff. We're doing this stuff each and every day. I've put in some pretty hard yards this week, Adam, as you know, on the next deal that we'll do, the next deal that we'll close. We might, at a pinch, close next Friday, probably looking at the following week. All the due diligence is done, all the legals are done. We're just waiting for our beloved financier who's backing us in this deal to get through their formal credit procedure and advances the funds. So it's amazing. What I love about this, it's not like we were doing deals 10 years ago and then we're talking about what we used to do 10 years ago, because as you know, in anything in life, the environments are changing kind of in real time. We're still in uncertain times. There's been some awesome questions about COVID impact on deals and valuations and all that stuff, and we'll get into that as part of the Q&A. But I think the best people to coach and mentor you guys, obviously we're going to say us because we're biased, but it's people that are still doing this stuff. They have a wealth of experience. Nobody in the world teaching this has done more deals than we have. They haven't. They just haven't. They haven't done a 10th of the deals that we've done. But that's fine, providing you're still doing deals now. Things change. And, a lot of the questions that you guys have, we're going through the similar things in all the deals that we do. So looking forward to this, Adam. It's been too long.
Yeah, and let's talk a little bit about what's happened since the last time we were live. right? So we announced towards the end of August, there were some big changes in the Dealmaker world. Earlier in the summer, I negotiated a deal for Carl and I to acquire Dealmaker from the kind of billion-dollar corporate we were both working with prior. And so Dealmaker is now fully outside. We're back to an independent business. Frankly, one of the coolest deals I've ever done. You know, at this point, you know, we give out tombstones for students who have bought businesses. I bought this business twice now.
I've given you 2 tombstones, but you've broke them both.
In fairness, I didn't break both of them. I've only broken one. Someone else broke it the second time. But the exciting thing is, like, the reason we've done that is because we want to be able to work with and teach in the way that makes sense for you guys, without the limitations and restrictions that were in some ways kind of foisted upon us. So we're excited to be back. We're excited to be here. We're excited to be serving you guys in every way possible. And hey, we've got some familiar faces in chat. We got Stephen. You know Stephen, Carl, little friend.
My buddy, Steve Wallace, my friend.
Yeah. Robert,
Get yourself back over to my local little eatery place. Let's have lunch sometime, my friend. Miss you.
Yeah. So we got Timothy, we've got Robert, we've got Yoshia, Stig. Guys, we're so glad to have you here. We've got a list of questions we're going to go through from the mailbag. But before then, go ahead and get any questions you have. This is a Q&A for you guys as well. So if you're here, ask us questions. Tell us what's going on, and we look forward to answering your questions. All right, Carl. So let's get this thing kicked off. You've just finished 75 Hard. And yes. 75 Hard, while it is a physical challenge, it's ultimately, and at its real core, a mental challenge. So first question from the mailbag is this. Do you guys have an education segment which conditions and educates your students to adopt the mental discipline needed to conquer personal development and achievements?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. So what we say all the time is that knowledge alone is not power. Knowledge that you implement and you execute is power. And so one of the skills you need to master to become a very successful deal maker is that unshakable ability to keep taking massive action and keep doing the things that you need to do. And it's putting yourself intentionally in uncomfortable situations. So if you never bought a business before, then most of it, you could argue, is going to be uncomfortable. So meeting sellers for the first time, submitting offers, talking to financiers, hiring CPAs and lawyers to close the deals for you. Those are all uncomfortable situations, but the more you put yourself into those, the more you learn. So inside of Dealmaker CEO, I don't know if you're in the program, but the first module is all about mindset. So we kind of lay the foundations of what mindset is all about and how you apply it to deals, but also why mindset is also really important to a seller. Because when you're doing $1 billion deal, and I've done lots and lots of those in my former life, those deals are more about numbers. They're less about the psychology of the people you're doing the deals with. Whereas when you're doing, $1 to $5, $1 to $10 million deals, which is where we play, then it's virtually all about psychology. Yeah, numbers are important to some degree, but understanding the seller's motivation and understanding the seller's psychology is a massive part of what we do and how we build our deals around what the other side is thinking and is feeling and ultimately what they want. So we cover a bunch of that stuff in the Dealmaker CEO program. Inside of our academy group, we are pounding the drum of mindset and mental toughness on a weekly basis. We give these guys challenges. I wasn't on the academy call yesterday. I was having my busted knee looked at, but on the past 3 or 4 weeks, we've been giving them challenges to do to continue to kind of hone the grit, the determination, and the mental toughness one needs to keep pushing through. And mindset, Adam, all comes down to your purpose. So if you think about anything in your life that you want to achieve, it doesn't matter what it is. It could be to drop 31 pounds like me, as I've just done. It could be to buy a business. It could be to fix a broken relationship. It doesn't matter what the task is. You'll only follow through with that flawlessly if you have that true defined purpose and that goal to achieve it. And for buying a business, for you, it could be you're trapped in a 9 to 5 and you want the freedom and the work-life balance and the wealth creation that comes with buying a business. For me, 75 hard, I've just been through the most challenging 75 days of my life, some of it with pretty terrible injuries. But I achieved it because my goal was, I'm about to become a grandfather for the first time. And I'm 50 in 8 days. And I wanted to live beyond 70 so I could see my granddaughter graduate from college, get married, and live an absolutely long and amazing life. And there is nobody in my family that has lived beyond the age of 65. Both my grandparents died before then, both my parents died before then. There's nobody that's lived beyond that. And I don't want to be another one of those statistics. I want to live a long, healthy, successful life, see my big growing family grow up and mature. So that was the big enough goal for me to push through and make sure I was going to be physically so fit that, I'm going to be able to dominate for another 20, 30, maybe even 40 years.
Yeah, and I just want to go back to something you said a couple minutes ago, Carl, and that is knowing your why, right? We've talked about this before. Carl and I, most of the spring, we were doing Mindset Mondays, and so much of it was about taking action and moving things forward, but it all roots into your why. The beginning of the live today, Carl and I were talking about how Dealmaker fits within our own wealth creation plan and our own legacies and things like that. The idea is our legacy is built by creating a world of entrepreneurs, which is all of you guys, but our wealth is created by practicing what we preach, and we go out and buy businesses. So our whys are tied into the actions in which we take. And ultimately for you, it's tied into the actions that you take. For us, we want to harness your motivation. We want to harness your energy. We want to harness your drive and ambition to be bigger, faster, stronger than you are today. And we want to then give you the tools to go acquire a business, which is the greatest wealth generator in the history of the world, and do so for whatever your why is. Is it to spend more time with your family? Is it to create generational wealth? Is it to create a lifestyle and a freedom that doesn't exist when you're working for someone else, slaving hour after hour, day after day for what? Maybe a cost of living pay increase every year, 2, 3, maybe 5% on a good year. Do you want to be living in that world, or do you want to live in the world where we're looking at a business, Carl was mentioning it, we're hopefully closing this month on it, either next week or the week after. This is a business that's doing multiple 6 figures a year in profit. And we're going to be putting a lot of that money back into our pockets as owners of that business. And it's important for us, and then for you guys, to be able to go find those same kind of opportunities. There's literally millions of them out there, so that you too can unlock yourself. But it all starts in your head. It all starts with understanding your motivations and being able to go from sitting on the sidelines to taking action. Being an action taker and a decision maker is a critical element of an owner investor in businesses, which is what we are. So mindset, it's big, Carl. It's big.
Yeah, I think two things just to kind of finish with, and then we'll move on. The 2 biggest elements of mindset are, number 1, your why, we just covered that. And number 2 are what may or may not be your limiting beliefs. So some people have limiting beliefs. They believe they can't do something. And if you believe deep down that you're not able to achieve something, then your entire body, your subconscious mind, your brain, your entire physiology believes what you tell it, and it will stop you doing that. So you've got to replace your limiting beliefs with empowering truth. People say, oh, I can't buy a business. Well, that's a limiting belief. You can buy a business. There are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of students in Dealmaker CEO Academy and Procs that have closed deals without using their own money. So obviously, Adam and I do it. We do it every day. And I know you guys think, well, great, these guys can do it. They've been at it forever. but anyone can do it. You know, people that, you know, couldn't even spell Dealmaker 3, 4, 5, 6 months ago and now proud business owners. So find your why, dial that in. That gives you the fuel and the fire to push on. And secondly, take your limiting beliefs and replace them with empowering truths. If you tell yourself, I can't buy a business, tell yourself that you must buy a business. Replace the word can't with must. Dial in your why, makes a big difference.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, you know this story, Carl. It's been my favorite of the summer. We had a student, John. He literally was a construction engineer making 90 grand a year. He now owns 3 businesses, closed 2 in July, 1 in September, and he's going to make in his pocket after debt service $750K a year. He's already quit his job. I don't know. That's lifestyle, life-changing, generational wealth.
He's done 3 deals in 6 months. Like,
not even. He closed 2 in July, 1 in September. He's literally closed 3 in a quarter. I was messaging with him, and this is so funny. He was like, I'm gonna do 1 more deal before the end of the year, and then I'm gonna take a break. I mean, the guy's irrevocably changed his life. He's done it in crazy times, COVID times, but he took action. He knew his why. You ask him why he's doing it. He wanted to provide his fiance and his child a better life. Well, my man, you've 8x'd your income in the span of 3 months. I'm pretty sure you've done exactly what you set out to do. And the coolest thing was when I was talking with him, it hadn't sunk in, the realization hadn't hit. And so I got to watch him have that kind of moment of like, oh man, I've done something like big. And it just really cool. So it's why we do this. And it's why understanding where your mind's at and what you need to do to take your decision making and action taking to the next level, and that's what we want to do.
Yeah, so, I'm so proud of John. You know, he's you know, if he's not already, he's going to be a multi-millionaire very, very quickly and live an absolutely abundant life. And he's going to be able to do some really good things with that, not just for his family, but his community and all those different things. And Adam, I guess that's why we do what we do. You know, that knowledge that we're changing people's lives in such a meaningful way, and not just his, the hundreds of others. Yeah, that's makes me very proud that we do what we do.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a game changer without a doubt. Let's get to the next questions. And guys, I know a couple of you put questions in the chat. We'll get to those. We just want to work through a couple of these mailbag ones, and then we'll get to those. But before we do, just quick shout out. We've got Victoria, Justin, Linda. So glad to see you guys. So glad to have you here. I forgot to mention earlier, we got Yoshia's from Colombia, from Medellin. Far away down in South America. Glad to have you. So, all right, Carl. We've got this very interesting set of questions tied to the military. So we'll jump right in. So this person has spent most of my life in the military and has never worked in the corporate world. I'm having a hard time determining what sector I should focus on. Is it better to partner with a company that I can help grow through acquisition while figuring out what may be best for me to focus on?
Yeah, so that's a really good question, actually, and I think, you know, absolutely. If you're out the military, and we'll talk about the military in a second, because that for me is massively positive, and I'll explain why shortly. But for you as a deal maker, there are, as you've alluded to, there are not just one, there are 3 ways that you can do this. So you could be a deal making consultant. So you could partner with a company or a high net worth or an investment company and go out and do deals for them, either for fees or for equity, i.e. pieces of the businesses that you acquire, or a combination of the 2. What you can also do is you can run the process as a deal maker, go and partner with somebody. If you're in any of our groups, there are deal makers in there that have deep industry experience, but don't want to go through the actual process of being a deal maker. So you can partner with that person, and you can own those businesses together. The other option for you is just really think about what you're passionate about. And even though you've come out of the military, maybe you're an engineer, or maybe you were doing something like that. So there's nothing to stop you going and buying, say, an engineering businesses. There's hundreds of thousands of them for sale. But for me, people from the military, and I remember Jason Ashcraft, who was one of the first students, Adam, of Ninja before it became Dealmaker. He came out of the military and had a very similar conversation with him. He was in the engineering corps, and he ended up buying an engineering company, and made, a bit like John that we talked about, significant income through becoming a deal maker. Because what's interesting about the military, and we talked about mindset before, coming from the military, you have a lot of those mindset skills already ingrained inside of you. So think about it. If you're in the military, you're conditioned to take orders and follow rules no matter what. You're conditioned to get the job done no matter what. And you have an unshakable spirit and drive to achieve your outcomes. You've already got that instilled in you through a military career. So those skills plugged into the deal making scenario are incredible. The best two backgrounds for deal makers, Adam, are military or sales. Military for the reasons I've just described. Sales because you already understand the prospect of funnels and building relationships and persuading and influencing people to do what you want to do. So, but military for sure. That would be my recommendations. Whatever feels right to you, but don't be afraid of jumping in. I don't know what your military background is, but it's likely you've been in hostile environments. You might have gone into battle, gone into war. I don't think there's anything more amazing than that in life, to serve your country and to do something like that. Buying a business will be a walk in the park for you.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting. Most military members have some kind of designations and specialties, right? You could be an engineer, you could be an IT specialist, you could be someone in the medical field. And so the thing is, if you're in the military, you've got other skill sets besides, the picking up a gun and shooting it, right? There's so much else that the military, whether it's the US, UK, or otherwise, trains you. Yes, the discipline, yes, the decisiveness and ability to really, move forward and take action. Those are all unbelievably valuable skill sets, but you have so many other skills. Find something that's in kind of your designated task and designated work, and use that and leverage that to help narrow down your choices. Yeah, absolutely. I'm a big fan. I know some partners of ours in Prox, our investment group. The husband, he's been in the corporate world, was in the military to begin with, and is still a reservist now here in the US. And it's hard to say his success because he actually has the combination. He does sales and has the military background. So he's a master sales guy, and just has an immovable force in terms of his presence. So very, very exciting. All right, Carl, next question here, and then we'll get to the ones that are coming through in the chat. And there's some stuff that we'll kind of cover. I'm looking for businesses that can succeed regardless of COVID-19, manufacturing, HVAC, distribution, but I have no experience in any of those industries. My goal is to be an owner investor because I have really no experience in running a business, nor do I have the capital to put down. So where do I put my time and effort?
Yeah, so you've latched on to a big topic that Adam and I've talked about for months now, in that there are a lot of sectors that have really boomed through COVID: construction, transportation, engineering, manufacturing. But then it always blows me away the power of the human spirit, where business owners, even for restaurants, have pivoted, and even retail, they've pivoted and are now making 3 to 10x monthly cash flow than they were before. But going back to your question, one of the biggest pieces of advice we will give you is, when you're doing your first deal, you have to stay in your lane. This process gets a lot harder when you try and close a deal in an area where you know absolutely nothing about. So definitely stick to the sectors that you know. If you can't, then you'll need to partner with somebody that's got those industry chops that you can leverage in order to do the deal. And that's really important for three things. Number one, it's important to build a solid relationship with a seller, that you have somebody in your team that really knows the space. Secondly, it's really important when you're building relationships with financiers, if your deal needs a closing payment, then to get a financier to back you, they want to see that the buyers have some knowledge and chops in the industry that you're in. And then thirdly, once you've acquired the business and the real work starts, then if you know nothing about the industry whatsoever, it's going to be harder for you to grow it. Even if you're an owner investor and you're working on the business, your role as the visionary and the strategist is still to paint the picture of what the business needs to become before you're ready to sell it and make all that money. So having somebody with you that knows the industry you're buying into is really, really important for all those three reasons.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the things, and I'll go back to the student we talked about earlier who's acquired the 3 companies in the last 3 months, right? He languished a little bit until he narrowed his focus. He narrowed his focus in terms of sector. He narrowed his focus in terms of approach and attack. He built real relationships with a couple of really strong intermediaries. And ultimately, every single business he bought came through those relationships. And so the idea is that narrow your focus means you can put so much more effort in and really hammer in. So instead of this like mile wide and inch deep approach, inch wide, mile deep, you're going to go so much further with so much more conviction in what you're doing. All right, Carl. So we've got some questions here in the chat, and guys, we really appreciate you asking questions. So if you've got more or you've got feedback to what we're saying, let's get them in there. So Stephen has the first question. He said, "Carl, can we have a pint now?"
Yes. So where I live in the UK, the pubs are still open. We are expecting some changes to the restrictions probably on Monday. So if nothing changes, then absolutely come over. We'll have a beer.
Yeah.
I'm allowed to drink now. So
those are the best kind of questions. When can we go grab a beer together?
Can we go grab a beer?
All right. So Victoria, not a question, but the first words of when she joined, it was exactly what she needed to hear. That was us talking about the mindset. So glad we could be there for you. So Justin's got a question. Good to see you both. I'm a first-time buyer and I'm trying to understand the timing of how you borrow money against the business before actually owning it. I think it's pretty straightforward here, Justin. When you go to put the LOI in for the business and you're presenting how you're going to structure the deal, you're very much communicating at the same time how you're planning on financing the deal. So prior to closing, if you're going to use a receivables facility, you're going to have to work with the seller to get the appropriate information on the list of customers who owe you money, the timing, the payment history, their credit history, and all that other stuff. You're going to have to get that from the seller. So you can't not inform the seller of what you're doing. That's a part of the conversation. But you work with them, and at the point of closing, that's when the receivables are actually financed. That's when the revolving credit facility is set up, and it's literally all happens effectively the day of closing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think taking it back just in to kind of a higher level, it's just like buying real estate. So if you've ever bought real estate, ever bought a property, you're financing the purchase of the property before you actually acquire it. So if you're buying a house, you find a house you like if you were buying a business, you make an offer, you then take the property, you call the financier, they'll do a survey. In our world, that's called due diligence. The financier will check that the property is worth what you're looking to pay for it, and then they will advance the funding to your lawyer the day before closing. And then as soon as you sign on the dotted line, the money changes hands from your lawyer to the seller's lawyer. And that's exactly how it works when you're acquiring a business, whether it's AR financing, real estate financing, you're financing the fixed assets, you're doing an SBA 7A loan, or it's traditional cash flow stroke senior debt from a bank. It all works in exactly the same way. You're muted, Adam. I can't hear you.
Sorry about that. Banks and lenders and financiers in the acquisition space, they're all very familiar with this. They're going to know exactly how the timing works and how that works. Just like when you're buying a house, the bank, the title company, everyone knows exactly how that's working. So it shouldn't be an issue. The biggest thing though is you do have to be able to communicate with the seller at some point how you're financing it, especially if you're using the assets, because they're going to need to turn over certain amounts of information for you to secure the financing.
Yep.
All right. So hopefully we got that. Let's see here. So Tim, when people talk of securing deals without debt besides seller finance, how would this be achieved? Well, Tim, there's almost infinite ways that for you to buy a company, right? You could buy it with all cash, but you're looking for debt. That's not debt unless you're getting that cash from someone else, right? We've talked about receivables financing just a minute ago. You've got all other kinds of asset-based lending. This is equipment, inventory, all of that, right? And it depends on how marketable the inventory is, all those kinds of things. You've got seller financing, as you've mentioned. You can go get hard money type loans, similar to real estate, if there's assets that can be secured by it. In addition, if it's not really debt, just go get a partner who's got money. They'll buy it. You own a piece of it. So there's so many different ways you can structure it. And you're saying without debt. So without debt, it's partners. Partners are generally going to be the best without seller financing or an earnout.
Yeah. Last deal we closed in Prox, the closing payment was just all the surplus cash in the business that the business didn't need. What we mean by surplus cash is cash over and above what the business needs to comfortably trade as an ongoing business. And I know, I think it was it Steve Rounds in the CEO group? He closed a deal quite recently in the last few weeks using the exact same method. The only, he didn't have to raise any financing. His deal was the closing payment was the surplus cash, and then the rest was seller financing, but that was deferred. That doesn't start until like 6 months from now. So those are the best deals to close. But to Adam's point, if you need to top up that closing payment with stuff that's not debt, then you can get equity investors, you can do hard money loans. You can even split a closing payment over a number of months. So you might make closing payment 1 on the day you take ownership. You might make closing payment 2 after, say, 90 days. That gives you some time to generate internal cash flow from operations. You can crowdfund. You can do all different things.
Yeah, absolutely. Ironically enough, you mentioned Steve. Steve's literally watching us right now. So shout out Steve. So Steve Rooms closed a deal, none of his own money. Awesome. Not only that, he's making more money from that deal than he's ever made in his professional career. So when I say you're only one deal away from changing your life, I mean it. I mean it. Steve's a true testimonial to that. And he's also made the comment there's more and more sellers who are happy to consider seller financing. There are lots of fed up owners, 100%. It's absolutely true. All right, so Robert, I've been running into a lot of asset sales lately. However, one seller didn't tell me until after I submitted my first offer, and I felt like he was trying to rip me off. How should I approach them?
Yeah.
Well, your offer letter or your LOI should always stipulate whether you're making an offer that's an asset purchase or a share purchase. That should always be the first step. If you're putting an offer out there, it should be very clear in your language. What were you going to say, Carl?
Yeah. So one of the reasons why sellers often talk about wanting to do an asset deal is that's the way they are conditioned by business brokers. So business brokers are in the business of selling businesses to other businesses. And if you're a company and you're acquiring another company, normally you'd buy the assets. You just take the bits you want and then you leave all the bits that you don't want. You're basically buying the goodwill and the customer base of that company. So that's why sellers are conditioned generally to want to do asset sales, but it's actually a terrible, terrible thing for them. Because in most jurisdictions, it's more beneficial to sell your shares when it comes to tax. It's more beneficial to you to buy the shares because it's easier to finance a deal where you're taking a legal entity that's got a credit history and it's got a track record and all those different things. The only downside of buying shares versus buying assets is that you need to do a bit more due diligence because you're buying the business warts and all. You're buying everything the business has ever done. If you're buying the assets, then you leave all of that stuff behind in the legal entity, the shell that you don't take. So as long as your attorney is doing the right level of due diligence and you're getting the right warranties and reps from a seller, that generally takes all the risk away.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the thing is, it's with anything, right? We've made the comparison that buying a business is no different than dating, right? Just like with any relationship, if you're not having kind of clear and transparent communication from both sides as to the expectations, what you're looking to do from your side as the buyer and what they're looking to do or expect as a seller, you're going to have breakdowns and problems like this. So all that said, the bedrock of it, just good communication between you, your advisors, the seller, their advisors. And I think a lot of those challenges get mitigated and everyone's speaking the same language. But exciting, you're at the point of making offers. Very exciting. Okay, so Tim's got another question here. When cold contacting businesses via letters, is there a material difference between addressing the letter to someone personally, i.e., Dear John Smith, versus Dear Shareholder and Owner?
Yes, massive difference. So
always personalized. Always personalized.
Always personalized, because the whole goal of a direct approach is to start building a relationship with that person before you actually get on the phone or you meet them in person. Addressing them dear shareholder, it's too cold in my opinion. I even address them by their first name, like I'm their buddy, because that's my goal through the process, is to build a relationship with them that's so strong is that I can be then highly creative and flexible in a deal that I'm going to structure. So always personalized.
Yeah, absolutely. Always. Let's see here. Steven's got another question. Been getting some LOI pressure, so letter of intent pressure, or if you're in the UK, HOT, heads of terms, pressure before even seeing the financials. So just spreadsheets so far. Does that sound like a red flag or a time waster?
I wouldn't call it a red flag, Adam. I wouldn't call it a red flag. I just think it's preposterous. It's like me, Adam, saying, hey, I want to buy your house. And you're saying, great, I want an offer before I let you see it.
No, it's even worse than that, Carl. It's even worse than that. It's you trying to buy my house and you saying, well, how many bedrooms is it? And you going, well, you need to put an offer before I need you to put an offer, Carl, before I tell you the bedrooms, the bathrooms, whether the kitchen's updated. You don't get any pictures.
Where is it? Is it on Nob Hill in San Francisco, or is it in the middle of South Dakota? I'm not going to tell you until you make an offer. Well, that's going to make me change my offer. You can't make an offer on a business until you've got some basic knowledge of what's going on. What does it do? Where is it based? What are its USPs? Is it profitable? Are the revenues growing? Does it have a strong balance sheet? If you don't have any of that stuff, then it's like you're blind. You can't do anything.
Yeah, exactly. And so in this particular case, not necessarily a red flag, probably tells me the broker's not a very good broker. But I would say it can lead to time wasting, right? A quick little story, right? we were looking at a company, which we've since put an offer in on recently, but several months ago we were looking at it, and they're like, need an LOI, but didn't provide any 2020 numbers, which, as you all well know, 2020 has been, dare I say, an unusual year, probably a little unusual. So 2020 numbers matter a lot. They matter a lot. Doesn't matter if 2019 was just a crazy year. I need to know what's happening right now. What's going on in the business? And over the process, and to the point where we were getting closer to where we are now, the seller was like, well, these guys didn't even bother putting an offer in, several months ago. And it was like, well, of course not. We asked for some recent financials, and I'm not committing to a valuation or an offer or anything like that unless I know how your business is doing, not just historically, but in the most unusual of years we've all probably experienced in our lifetimes, right? And so, it can be a time waster, but I think most importantly is realize you should never put an LOI out, because an LOI or HOT can be binding in many ways. You don't want to put that out unless you've been able to do your financial analysis and valuation and deal structure. This same company I'm talking about, they went with another set of buyers. Those buyers just put in an offer effectively sight unseen, and now haven't been able to get across the finish line because they were getting hung up in tons of due diligence and tons of headaches because they didn't actually look before they left. So that's how and why the deal is coming back to us as a potential acquisition. So it's always worth, the expression measured twice, cut once. Make sure you actually have the information before you're committing, you're anchoring evaluation, you're anchoring expectations. You want to do all of that ahead of time.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Victoria is asking, Carl, are your thoughts on self-storage companies? And then I've got thoughts as well, so I'll let you go first. She's asked you.
So self-storage companies, I've never bought one. They're very interesting in as much as that you can do some great roll-ups with that type of industry. And a roll-up is where you combine lots of businesses together and then drive synergies through the economies of scale of having more than one. But self-storage businesses, they're very, very simple businesses, aren't they? You basically, you acquire a bunch of real estate, and your yield, your cost of people renting the space, obviously is a multiple of the cost that it's generating for you to run a facility like that. And really, it's more of a sales and marketing game. I think it's as complicated as like an engineering business or a technology business. But definitely, it's just never a sector I've ever been remotely interested in. Something I'm not really passionate about. How about you?
Yeah. So self-storage businesses, the word business is, it is a business, but in reality, it's a real estate play, right? You're buying rental real estate. Instead of you buying, a whole bunch of houses, you're just buying a whole bunch of boxes effectively. So it's a rental real estate play at a commercial level. Major factors in there are occupancy and turnover and all that kind of stuff. So it is a business, but it's really a real estate play. I think if I were to look for a business, something I could grow and scale and add significant amount of enterprise value. So when I sell it in a few years, I'm gonna make more money, higher multiple, all that kind of stuff. Unless I'm gonna go buy an absolute ton of self-storage and having to effectively create my own real estate investment trust like a REIT. Other than that, it's really a real estate play, less a true kind of operating business play. Hopefully that answers your question, Victoria. And then leverage on those is going to be interesting. You're probably not going to get seller financing. Purchasing of self-storage looks very similar to any kind of commercial real estate. So hopefully that helps. Just want to jump back to some of our mailbag questions, Carl, since we're talking about sectors here. Let's see here. My passion is dance. My expertise is details and analysis. I'd love to analyze businesses and do the due diligence on potential acquisitions. for someone to gain confidence, but I have no experience doing it. How do I achieve my passion and my expertise? So how many dance questions have you gotten before, Carl?
Never had a dance question. So if dance is your passion, that's great. There are dance studios, there are dance businesses, there are production companies. So there are lots of different types of businesses in the dance space. But my answer to all those questions where passion and sector skills sometimes don't align is go partner with somebody. Go partner with somebody in that industry that can add some skills and some weight to your own skill set to be able to get those deals done.
Yeah, absolutely. Find a partner. Okay. Would it be better to roll up general contractors or add different subcontractors to a general contractor to provide a full service construction service business? So in this case, you've got a GC, then electricians, plumbers, concrete companies, things like that. You're the GC. Is it better to just do a roll up of GCs or have a GC and buy the subs?
You can do both, because if you look at the way the construction industry works, a GC essentially is a broker. So the GC gets the relationship, gets the job from the client, and then the role of a GC is to kind of insource all of the different trades, whether it's the concrete guys, the structural engineering guys, the guys that do the plumbing, the electrics, the landscaping, the glazing, the flooring, it doesn't matter. So theoretically, if you're a GC and you go and buy some of those companies, then what you're doing as an organization is you're increasing your margin, because you're capturing more of the margin in a construction job because you own a lot of those trades that are doing that work. So that would be a great way to grow a business financially. But then there's also a play where you can acquire other general contractors, because it's all about grabbing additional market share, isn't it? So if you take a particular area, take the New York metro region, there might be 100 GCs that are doing all of these jobs. So each GC's got a certain percentage of market share, and it's got a certain percentage of trusted relationships that their clients call on. They're first in line to bid for these jobs. So if you own multiples of those, you've just got more kind of legs on the spider's web. You've got more feelers into the marketplace to generate more business. Personally, I would be a GC and I would acquire the trades. But that's not to say rolling up GCs alone isn't a good strategy. But I think you really need to know the industry to want to do stuff like that. Constructions, it's a pretty simple industry, but I think it's very political and it's relationship based. So definitely, if you've got chops in that space, fantastic. If you haven't, we've said it before, go partner with somebody.
Yeah. So for me, I would just do both. Why limit yourself to only rolling up GCs or only owning a GC and then adding the subs? For me, I would look to grow in whichever way possible, right? When we think about growth through acquisition, so you've done your first deal, you've got 3 ways to grow through acquisition. 1, you go buy a competitor. So this is a roll up. You're doing one GC buying another GC. So now you've got a bigger one. The second is you're buying a complementary business. This is someone that a GC works with. This would be like a architectural or design firm or something like that. They're very complementary. And then the final one is someone up or down your kind of vendor or so supply chain, right? This is where you're buying a GC, then your plumbers, your concrete companies, and things like that. So there's so many different ways to grow. You've got those 3 kind of major acquisition opportunities. I wouldn't limit myself to any of it. I'd go do all of it, right? Once you've got your first business, just go spend all of your time finding ways to expand your fledgling empire through acquisition. It is by far and away the best way to grow your empire, through acquisition.
Yep.
All right. So this one's kind of open-ended, but not at the same time. It could be answered with a simple yes or no. do construction and roofing companies have enough assets to do an LBO? The answer is yes or no or maybe, right? Depends. The idea is, what is an LBO? An LBO is you using other people's money to buy a company. If you're thinking about it purely from a balance sheet financing perspective, the equipment, the accounts receivable, maybe some inventory to actually finance for a closing payment, and you pay off the rest over time. Well, yeah, they can certainly have those kinds of assets, but you can also just do a deal that's fully seller financed, still an LBO. You could also do a deal where someone writes a $500,000 check, a partner of yours, and the seller carries the rest of the note, but you've not put any money in, still an LBO for you. All you've done is created a deal, you've walked away as part of an owner, and you've put none of your own money in. So the idea is, the answer is always yes, they can qualify for an LBO. It just depends on the structure of the deal and how you can come up with payments for closing or any kind of other deferred payments. But the answer is always a yes. All right, so let's see if we get any other questions here in the chat. Yep, so Stig has asked, what is the best way to approach wealth managers to possibly source deals?
Wealth managers are a great source of deal flow. And
love them.
So 20% of businesses that are sold through business brokers. So if you look at the US, about 2.5 million businesses for sale, give or take. About a couple of 100,000, 225,000 businesses were sold last year. So that's like a 1 in 11 ratio. Out of that 225,000, about 20% or 45, 50,000 sell through brokers. The other 80% sell through a deal intermediary network. So what do we mean by that? So a deal intermediary network is when you're a seller, before you go anywhere near a broker, there are 4 people that you'll tell. You'll tell your CPA, you'll tell your lawyer, you'll tell your bank or financier that's backing you in the business, and you'll tell your wealth manager. So why would an owner of a business tell their wealth manager that they're about to put into play the sale of their company? It's because when they sell their company, they are hoping that they're going to generate a capital event that they want their wealth manager to go and put to work in the market, whether it's stocks, bonds, real estate, Bitcoin, FX, pork belly futures, doesn't matter. And there are a gazillion wealth managers operating all over the world. The United States is probably one of the most fragmented countries for wealth managers. 99% of the wealth managers in the US are one-man operations. And they're in the business of getting clients, placing clients' money, and earning what I call long-tail commissions. So if you call your wealth manager and say, hey, I've got $500,000, I want to invest it, the wealth manager gets a commission for placing that money, but then gets commissions and fees every year. You might have that money invested for 25 years. So wealth managers, out of all the 4, so CPAs, lawyers, banks, wealth managers are the best and easiest people to network with because they are in the business development industry. They're all on LinkedIn. Go to LinkedIn, search for wealth managers, and you'll find thousands and thousands and thousands of them. And you approach them, and your sell to the wealth manager is hey, buddy, I'm about to acquire a business. I'm looking for deals in whatever sector. Do you have any clients that are considering selling their business, which when they do, will have funds to invest with you as part of your relationship? If you send those emails out or you call wealth managers with that sort of script, they must seriously hate money if they don't want to help you. They must detest having money. So they are the easiest of the deal intermediary big 4, as we call them, the 4 horsemen of deals. They are the easiest to collaborate with.
Yeah, and again, I think we talked about earlier, it's like you want to narrow your focus and narrow your relationships. listen, don't go send an email to 100 different wealth managers with little expectation to actually build a relationship with them, right? Go find the right ones. Go find a handful, 5, maybe 10 of them, and go build an actual relationship with them. And you'll find if they don't have an opportunity today, they're likely to have one tomorrow or the next day. To me, it's an investment of time into a relationship, where you've got to really work on building a relationship that isn't predicated on, hey, I need something, call me, right? Like, you want them to think of you, and to think of you, you've got to be top of mind, and to be top of mind, you've got to be someone they know, like, and trust, which is, ironically enough, something we need everyone to do when they're working with a seller. So it's the same thing when you're building relationships with, as Carl said, the 4 horsemen, any of these kind of intermediaries that can provide deal flow for you. All right, so we're getting ready to wrap up here, guys. Before we get to one or two last questions, if you guys haven't gotten it yet, Carl's written a pretty awesome book. Carl, is that book still in your bookcase? Remember your podcast?
Yeah, so it's a funny story, actually. So, with like Zoom, people can have like backdrops that aren't real. Somebody said to me the other day, like, hey, I love the backdrop. Can you send me the image? I said, no, I'm in my library. And they said, okay, awesome. Like, what's the, go pull the best book off your bookshelf and give us a quick book review. So I'm looking up, I've got Rich Dad Poor Dad, I've got 10X Rule, Get a Grip. And then I reached over and I pulled out this bad boy. No Money Down, Business Buying Secrets. This is the best book on my bookshelf. This is my 28 years of life's work. I go through the 10 steps you need to follow. Before, Adam, I was talking about sales. I've just opened it to page 58. It's the deal origination funnel. So this is an awesome book. I think it's, I don't know what we charge for it on Amazon, but I'm sure there's a cheeky link, Adam.
No. So you can just buy it straight from the website. We'll drop a link in the chat for you to, if you want to order your digital copy of that, and we'll get a copy to you in email. But listen, guys, read the book. Take charge of your life. Be an action taker. Figure out your why and move forward. And this book will get you started on that journey. All right, Carl. So we'll get the last questions here in before we call it a day.
The 10 steps.
Say it again.
The 10 steps. I've closed the page now, but I had the 10 steps there in the book.
All right, so we've got the book in the chat there. So
great, thank you.
Questions here. So lots of sellers are curious about selling now because they know the valuation will be diminished if they were slowed by COVID. What is the way around this? This is a great question. For me, you buy the company for what it is today, and you add something like an earnout on top of what you're willing to pay based on what the company is today to increase the overall valuation should the company return to form in its pre-COVID days. So here's an example. Say a company was making $2 million a year in revenue and making 400 grand a year in profit on the bottom line. So simple 20% margin, you're going to pay maybe 1.2 million for this company at a 3x multiple. Well, that's great. So the seller, let's say the seller is of the same mindset, thinking, I'm going to get 1.2 million for my company. If the company is still doing 2 million a year in revenue and 400 grand on the bottom line, you'd be willing to pay, you'd get a deal done, and you'd move forward. However, COVID's happened and revenue's been cut in half. So now it's a business doing $1 million a year in revenue. And for the sake of simplicity, profits, same margin. So they're only making 200 grand a year in profit. So it's been cut in half, 400 to 200. At a same 3x, you're going to only pay 600,000 for that business. But the seller in their mind's like, well, that's not fair to me. I just lost out on 600,000 of sales value because of COVID. So what you can do is you can say, listen, I'll pay you 600K for the business, structure that deal. But on top of it, if the business returns to its prior form and the earnings of that business are at the 2 million revenue and 400,000 level of profit, I'll pay you the 1.2 million. that difference, that 600,000, the mechanism in which it's triggered is based on the performance of the company, and that is an earnout. And that's how you keep the valuation where the seller wants it without you being at risk. Because in the case the company stays at 1 million and 200K a year, that's actually still a pretty nice little business. You're not going to be responsible for paying that extra 600,000 a purchase price unless the company performs in a manner that triggers that additional payment. And when you pay out of upside, it doesn't cost you any money.
Yep, 100% agree. Nothing more to add to that.
All right, Carl. So last question here. If you purchase a business, wouldn't it be hurting its brand to change the name to something of the new owner?
So I personally would never do that. Even if I was buying tons of businesses and creating a group, I would always keep the original name of the company for two reasons. First reason, there are reputational risks by rebranding a company into the marketplace, especially if it's been there a while. Customers, suppliers, everybody will know that business in terms of what it's called. So changing that name just to suit your own personality and dare I say it, without offending anyone, your own ego, it's just bad business practice. You should keep the same name. The other reason, and I put out a video editorial about this where I was stood in front of the soccer stadium in Wales a few weeks ago. I went to see my daughter in Wales and I was on a walk. And I was talking about, the power of the name. In some cases, the owner, and this is crazy, but it's true. In some cases, the owner places more value on the name of their company than the amount of cash you will give them at closing. I know that sounds crazy, but it's true. You guys have all heard about the Radio Express deal. I'm not going to waste time talking about it now. Go to the Dealmaker Wealth Society YouTube channel, or if you're on the Confessions of a Dealmaker email thread, go and listen to the video where I talk about the power of the name. That's really, really important. So keeping the name of the business for me, Adam, is very, very important.
Yeah, I mean, especially we're talking so often about businesses that have a legacy, and it's ultimately what we as buyers are looking to protect. To go in and say wipe away that legacy with a name change probably doesn't make sense. However, where it does make sense to change the name is when this isn't your first acquisition. If you're doing a roll-up, if you're doing a series of acquisitions to an existing business, then it can be worthwhile changing the name, not to something new, but to whatever your foundational brand or foundational company is, right? So if I bought a plumbing company and that plumbing company was going to be my foundational company, I would then focus in on any other acquisitions of plumbing companies, unifying the name and expanding the brand. It would make my marketing and all of that far more consistent. But that's only if I'm doing bolt-ons or kind of a roll-up. If I'm doing a standalone deal, yeah, as Carl said, you don't want to change that name.
Interesting to that point. So one of our most successful students, Imran, bought an optical company. It was an optician's business in the UK and has gone on to buy 73 more. So he's got the name of his group, but then each of the optical businesses that he's acquired, they've all retained their original names, because what he found in the opticians industry, to my earlier point, is that opticians that are selling more about seeing their name above the door than they do about the amount of cash they're actually going to get by selling the business. And it takes me back to something I talked about before, that, and Adam, you share this opinion. When you own a company, and you've built that company up for 10, 20, 30, even 40 years, you've spent more time in that business, running that business, the blood, the sweat, the tears, the good times, the bad times. You've spent more time inside of that business than you have with your own family. Well, I'm lucky, like my son Josh is in my office with me today. He's been helping me out with some stuff. Hey, Josh. Hi. So it's different for me. But most business owners, where they're customer facing, they won't have, they won't see their family. So often that name is kind of part of their identity. It's part of their legacy, and they don't want you to change it. And I've done deals where I've saved myself a $300,000 closing payment by promising and writing into the legal contract that I wouldn't change the name of the business. Like, I don't really care what the business is called. I just care about how much money it's going to give me every month. So to be able to do that is I think so powerful. But it's horses for courses, Adam, isn't it? It depends on the business, it depends on the industry, but generally that would be my recommendation. You know,
yeah, absolutely. I mean, generally, I'm in the exact same state of mind with it. The only time I think uniformity matters is if I'm doing like a localized roll up or something like that. And I'll gain market share and gain power through cohesive branding. Other than that, yeah, I'm like Carl, I don't much care what it's called outside of it just being called money in my pocket. So,
and you know what's so funny? I don't know if you guys get this in the US. I think you do, but like in the UK, in the professional services sector, so architects, CPAs, lawyers, like when you see some of the names, they have like 15 names in their title. It's like Baygot Hayes with Howarth and Sutherland, Bill Jones and Fredco. It's because
and McKenzie.
Yeah, and that's like KPMG. KPMG is the amalgamation of like tons and tons of other different businesses. That's because when these people sell or merge, they have to have their name in the title of the business. The name means more to them than the money they're going to get. It's crazy, but it's just the way their egos and their minds, you know, work in these things. And all I'm saying is, let's play on this and get the best deal for ourselves by giving the seller what they want. One of my golden rules in deal making is elicit what the seller actually wants in the deal. And often it's not money. Give them what they want, you can buy their business. Sometimes it's not money that makes the deal work. It's crazy things. I've bought businesses before with no closing payment because I promised not to change the logo. The logo of the business. All right, it was a pretty terrible logo from 1985, but I said, no, I won't change the logo. Okay, I don't need a closing payment. What am I going to say? No, I'll give you $300,000 at closing because I want to change the logo. No, I'll keep my money. Thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely. Makes no sense. Alrighty, guys. We went a little long today. Really appreciate you guys showing up. Love having you guys here with us. If we didn't get to all the questions, we'll try to get you the next time. But we are always so thankful to be able to spend this time with you. If you like the video, go ahead and put a like. Share this with your friends. Listen, we want to help as many of you become entrepreneurs as possible. And how we do that is expanding our network. So help us expand that network of people. And we're always here to help. Carl, have a wonderful weekend, my friend. And remember, you are one deal away from changing your life.
We'll see you guys soon. Have a great weekend. And until then, bye for now.
Bye, guys.